So now that Chucky's in DBD, it is no secret that he's a character I've been wanting this game for a long time. That being said, as much praise as he has been getting from both the survivor side and the killer side, I wanted to look into if maybe there's something that's going to happen in the future with him. So there was another recently released killer that had a very similar reception to a degree, and that was Wesker. And when Wesker first came out, not only did the game gain a lot of players, not just because it was a Resident Evil title, but because the killer was universally praised for showing skill expression, having mobility, having basically everything in his kit. However, as time has gone on, Wesker has become in the public consciousness as more of a bad thing for the game. I'll explain a little bit further what I mean by that. So, when Wesker was first released, he was seen as this character that offered killer players another option in the S tier. He's more of an A tier killer at this point, but that's besides the point. He was universally praised. A lot of people played him. But it did get to a point, and this is where I'm going to get with Chucky, where he was the only killer a lot of people were seeing. Now, I'm being hyperbolic with that statement. Obviously, he wasn't. But he jumped up to a 60% play rate, not only right after his release, but a few months after, and he still is one of the highest played killers. Now, you could make an argument, well, does this mean Wesker is really good, or really strong, or really fun, or does it mean the other killers are just not none of those things? And that argument, I think, is going to be tested with Chucky. Chucky is a killer who has a mobility ability. That was really difficult to say. He has a mobility, he has skill expression, he has anti-loop, chase. The only thing Chucky is really missing is information in his base kit and slowdown in his base kit. However, perks can compensate for that. Now, you could argue, well, that's part of the reason why Wesker did so well, because he has all of these things. He has mobility, anti-chase, anti-loop, mobility, I already said mobility, and information and slowdown in the sense of his sprays. Chucky doesn't have all of that. However, once again, I don't think that is going to be the issue. I don't think the issue is going to be what Chucky necessarily brings to the table as far as being good, meta, and all of these things. I think the issue is more so going to be play rate. Not only is Chucky a mobility killer, which is something that almost is universally praised by every killer player on the planet, he's also a stealth killer, which is something that a lot of survivors are not the biggest fan of. He's also an anti-loop killer, kind of, and I think this is where tensions are going to grow high with Chucky in the future, because he doesn't technically have anti-loop. It's more so his stealth allows him to shut down loops by confusing the player, not so much by actually shutting down the loop. Now, that being said, Chucky doesn't have any slowdown abilities, so there's nothing for survivors to do other than the anti-loop. So there's no mini game they have to do similar to what they have to do for Wesker or Singularity or these other killers. There's nothing added to the game in the sense of a secondary objective. So I think that will help his case as far as survivors not getting tired of playing against him. But another thing with Chucky is the uniqueness of his character, I think, is huge. He's the first third-person killer. He is really shorter than even the shortest of killers, who in the moment, if you're curious, is Sadako and technically Freddy, but they are the shortest killers in the game, but he beats them by a country mile as far as how short he actually is, which makes some loops literally impossible to see him once he goes undetectable. But like I said, my question becomes, with him being so unique, him being a mobility killer, him being licensed, maybe not the most popular license in the world, but still a decently popular one, will his play rate get to a point to where he becomes a nuisance for survivors? Like I said, similar to Wesker, people were fine with Wesker on both sides when he first came out. There were issues, bugs, and all these things, but most people took it for what it was and were like, okay, these will probably get fixed, blah, 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 they're exploits, etc., etc. There's a whole other discussion with the hug tech at the moment, but I'm not going to get into that can of worms. But my point is, once he started getting played a lot by a lot of killer players, once again, he jumped up to a 60% play rate 2 weeks into his release, and it didn't go down by too much even after that. So my biggest fear is that Chucky is going to have this same, I don't want to say detriment, but the same stigma against him, where people are not going to like playing against him because he is so frequently seen. We're not going to know the effects of this for a few months, because as much as people like to complain, a new killer comes out, obviously their play rate is going to be super high. Everyone's trying them out and wants to get good with them and unlock all of their stuff. So obviously his play rate's going to be high. But my point is, after those few months, will the novelty wear off, or will people still be there for the novelty? Me in particular, after playing the PTB on Chucky, I'm finding it hard to go back to first-person killers. They play in such a different way. Now, I still do play them. I have my mains, obviously, but I've been playing this game for a while, so it's not anything new to me. But it's just a completely different experience, and I think that is going to be the determining factor for all of this. So, at the end of this, do I think Chucky is going to become the new Wesker? I think to a degree, in the sense of his uniqueness, but I don't know if he's going to have a massive play rate. But we'll see. He does have a lot of different play styles. He's a very modular killer. You can play him as stealth, you can play him as anti-chase, you can play him as anti-loop, you can play him for the mobility and the dash. There's a lot of things he can do. And I think that's a good thing for the game, but as with most things of progress, it really shows you how bad some of the old stuff was. And I think we're getting to a situation where some of the newer killers aren't necessarily power creeping older killers, but they are making them seem worse than they actually are. Which means people are going to play the newer killers more often, which means that the older killers are just going to sit there collecting dust, and people are going to form a resentment for the killer. Not necessarily the players, but the killer itself. But we'll see where it goes. I'm going to be happy to see how this chapter plays out in the next few months or so. We still haven't gotten any buffs or nerfs or anything on the PTB for Chucky. We'll probably get that around Tuesday, I would assume. But for now, subscribe for more Chucky content, because that's mostly what we're focusing on now. Like the video, all that stuff. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and thanks for listening. Bye.